Good evening and welcome to Law Talk, the show that brings the Constitution, the law, and the events of today to you each month. Good evening, welcome to Law Talk. Mark, what are we covering tonight?
Well, we have the kind of a historical thing. It's the Crimean Purchase.
The Crimean Purchase, but I thought Crimea belonged to Ukraine.
Well, let me, in the interest of full disclosure, we didn't have anyone to come in and debate us on this issue tonight, and some of our studio crew do think this is a crazy theory. But what we have here is that from 2009 to 2013, Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. And then in March of 2014, or March of 2009 was the reset, the Russian reset, the perestroika.
No, the perestroika.
Perestroika. And
well,
so,
that's why she pressed the reset
button.
button.
The reset button.
Yeah,
right.
we're all going to reset.
Okay, and then 2014, a year after she was no longer Secretary of State, or a couple of months after she wasn't Secretary of State anymore, even though there had been some separatist action about a year before that, Crimea was annexed by Russia.
Well, actually, what happened is, if we follow along, Crimea had been having separatist revolt for over a period of time, and then it turned out that the separatists sort of overthrew the provincial government somewhat in Crimea, and the Russians had to go there to help. Right. The separatists that really belonged in Crimea, and so it should belong to Russia.
So they were really saving the world.
They were saving the world.
They were saving the world.
But
They're
I
doing their help.
understand our Secretary of State was there to help them save the world.
Well, okay. Well, here's kind of an interesting thing. There was when the Ukrainians had separated from the USSR.
Correct.
They had nuclear weapons.
Yes, they did.
And so there's a treaty between the U.S. and the Ukrainians and the Russians that if Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons, its territorial integrity would be respected.
And that means that the country would remain under its own self-autonomy,
yeah, the borders
and not be controlled by Russia or the U.S. or Poland or any other country around it.
It basically meant that if Russia invaded, the U.S. would attack.
Well, wait a minute. Are you telling me that the U.S. had promised Ukraine to protect it from Russia?
Right, if they gave up their nuclear weapons.
If they gave up their nuclear weapons.
And so that was the deal then.
But what happened to the deal?
Well, there's just a couple of coincidences. If you look back.
A couple of coincidences.
If you look back at the Alaska Purchase in 1867.
Seward's Folly.
Seward's Folly, okay. What happened then, that was actually during the Crimean War.
That's unique.
And that was when Turkey and Britain and France were fighting with Russia over the Crimea, and Russia had Alaska, but they were afraid the Brits were going to sink the Russian ships, so they couldn't really, support Alaska anymore. So they had to do kind of a fire sale to the U.S. That's why we got such a good deal on it.
Well, actually, they called it Seward's Folly at the time, but in reality, he paid pennies for acres or thousands of acres.
It was $7.2 million in 1867, which is probably worth more now.
Yeah, of course it is. But the question is how much we've gotten from Alaska. What they didn't know now, or then, which they do know now, is that oil is so abundant in Alaska, you can literally drill anywhere and you're going to find an oil well.
Back in those days with steel pits. But now we have the Crimean Purchase, but this time we got $131 million. Or the United States was paid, or Secretary of State.
Whoa, who was paid?
The Secretary of State was paid.
The Secretary of State was paid. Why would she be paid? She's not. She didn't own the Crimea.
Well, yeah, but I think they worked out some kind of deal.
Who worked out the deal?
It was a mining tycoon named Frank Gustar, and he owned a company called Uranium One. And a lot of people will say that, well, that's just a front for the Russian government. And
yeah, well, his name sounds like a good Irishman.
And he also did some deals in Kazakhstan and a couple of things going over there that the U.S. was involved in. And so he gave $31 million to the Clinton Foundation, and then also there's $100 million that he didn't give the Clinton Foundation until they found out that he did.
Oh, so wait a minute. You just covered a lot of ground there. First of all, is this a deal that went through the U.S. government?
Well, it was a deal that went to the Clinton Gustava, I think it's, how do you say it? Gustra Sustainable Growth Initiative was $100 million, but that was never reported.
Oh, but that wasn't reported.
Because it was all done in Canada.
Oh, it's done in Canada.
But then
was the IRS there?
No, IRS wasn't in that one.
Was Lois Lerner there?
But I think there's going to be a refiling this time. There's a little refiling.
There's
now.
supposed to be a refiling
But
going
anyway,
on.
so basically,
Well, wait a minute. How do you get away with $131 million donated to your foundation and nobody reports it? And
Well, no,
funny enough, the Secretary of State is the wife of the foundation.
Well, the funny is the 31 million I think was reported. The 100 million just kind of popped up.
Oh, that just popped up
inadvertently.
But wait a minute. What was the
and
deal?
now they have
actually?
to refile. Well, the deal was that they get a bunch of uranium.
A bunch of uranium.
But it's just kind of a coincidence that Crimea just gets like and then Eastern Ukraine gets kind of like and there's 140 million.
Okay, wait a minute. Time out here for a second. What we're talking about is you're saying that, from what I understand from the story, 20% of the uranium that belongs to this country's natural resources was sold
to Putin.
Through this organization in Canada, and it was orchestrated by the Clinton Foundation.
Well, that's where the money went.
Oh, that's where the money went.
That's how they laundered the money.
We don't know who orchestrated it, right?
No, we don't know. I'm sure it was all for a good cause.
And wait a minute, isn't that when Russia formally invaded Crimea?
Well, like I said, that was all about the same time. That happened on February 28th, 2014. It was annexed.
Oh, annexed.
But the activity had been going on for a year or so before that.
Well, I got a question though. Can I annex your house?
Well, if you pay the right people 131 million,
I guess I could annex anyone's house.
No, but what's kind of interesting about the Clinton Foundation is that they say there's disagreement about these numbers, but there's reports that about 10% of the money that goes to the Clinton Foundation goes to the helpless and the needy and the poor person.
But what about the 90%?
And the 90% kind of goes for overhead. And
that's overhead.
And salary. And it goes,
salary.
What's the guy, Sid Blumenthal?
Yeah, okay. Sid Blumenthal.
Sid and all those guys, they get pretty good salaries.
I guess so.
And about 10% goes to help the needy, and about 90% goes to the overhead.
Well, I also understand that Stephanopoulos actually donated $100,000, and he's a newscaster, and he pretended like he had never done that until he was caught.
He forgot about that.
Oh, he forgot that he gave $100,000 to the Clinton Foundation.
Just like they forgot to report the 100 million.
Oh, yeah, what's $100 million?
What's $100 million? Between friends.
Between you and the IRS,
between
$100 million.
Between the Russia and the
You know what's funny is that people donate $100 million to me all the time, and I never have to report it.
I forget about it.
You kind of forget about it.
Now, the Red Cross, even though I think they just got in some trouble the other day, 90%.
The Red Cross?
But 90% of what the Red Cross takes in, it goes to the poor person. And
allegedly.
Yeah, that's what they say. But and 10% goes to overhead. But in the Clinton Foundation, it's flipped over. 90% goes to overhead. But they have high overhead because they have to fly around. They've got who's the daughter? She flies
Chelsea.
Around. Chelsea flies around.
Oh, well, Chelsea's got to fly.
They got Sid Blumenthal. They've got a lot of people that they have.
Well, they have a big entourage.
They have a big staff. They have a lot of friends.
They have a lot of friends.
That are
and
employed.
I also understand it was all those friends that the emails vanished.
Oh,
when Miss Clinton was Secretary of State.
Well,
wasn't those are the ones that vanished? All those friends.
The deal,
like the Russians and the Canadians.
The deal President Obama made with Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is that she couldn't use. Sid. You couldn't use Sid.
Yeah, because Sid was actually the main person that dug up dirt on President Obama in 2008.
Yeah, he was an antagonist.
So he said, so the president doesn't like Sid very much.
So the State Department couldn't hire him, but instead he was hired
by the Clinton Foundation.
By the foundation, and he ends up that he was kind of her chief of staff while she was Secretary of State, but she was a personal friend.
Oh, personal friend.
So those emails were all deleted because those were all personal.
Oh, those are all personal emails.
And then
were they all talking about Chelsea's wedding?
And then Frank Gustav, he was a personal friend, so that $100 million got deleted.
Yes,
and anything with the foundation was personal.
And anything about Crimea being turned over to the Russians in a trade-off with their uranium is all personal.
Well, it's kind of like grandkids and weddings and what hairstyles.
How can you keep track of all that?
Well, it's personal stuff. Nobody wants to be bored about what's going on with the sewing bee and
the sewing bee.
The sewing bee and the hair color and stuff like that.
I got to tell you something.
So you just delete that stuff.
Why don't we take a look at the map where we're talking about if we get the opportunity? I know that we've talked about this briefly, but there's Ukraine, there's Crimea in the south. And Russia, as you see, is what effectively is to the east of Ukraine. And from what I understand, everything on to the right of the main river through the Ukraine is basically Russian. And now they have Crimea. So in reality, you're trying to tell me that Russia sort of controls half of the Ukraine right now.
Well, there probably be, it's kind of a, there's kind of an effect, you're also looking at, Poland, because Obama withdrew the missile defense from Poland, and you've got Latvia and Lithuania. So
And Romania.
so you're
Moldova.
So you're looking at a lot of countries there that are kind of poised to be under.
Well,
under
what's kind
Russian
of what's
domination.
sad about that is right next to the
So
on
that's
the other
actually-
side,
that's
right
a
next to
pretty good-
Poland, it starts looking at Austria and Germany.
Yeah, but no,
Isn't that a little close? It's starting to sound a little bit like World War II here.
No, but it's only about $131 million. That's pretty good money, So they got some money for it.
But
So
I have a
that's not bad.
question.
That's not bad.
Are they going to have to pay taxes on that?
Well, I think they're going to refile. When they discover the $100 million that was missing before, that they forgot they got.
Oh,
it,
they forgot the 100
They
million.
forgot they got it, and they forgot to give away.
Yeah,
the
of course they forgot.
Okay, now they're going to refile their taxes.
But how do you file when you're a tax-free organization? You're not paying taxes anyway.
You still have to. You have to
You
file.
see, I still have to file.
Well-
but the problem I have is
But
at
they have to
100
refile.
million.
Yeah, that's not that much.
And-
That's nothing compared. That's like one speech.
Oh, that's a speech.
That's a
But
speech.
I understand the Clintons were broke when they left the White House.
Well, they're not so broke anymore.
And so I understand they were totally broke. But anyway,
yeah.
listen, why don't we wait and see what happens with this? Because I have a
Yeah,
feeling
it's all
there'll
in
be
good
more
fun.
investigation.
That's all
So
good
what's
fun.
our next subject tonight,
Okay,
Mark?
this is H599, which is a bill introduced
Sound like a bill.
in the House of Representatives, and it's those crybaby Tea Partiers
Oh,
are
my
upset
God.
that the
Not
2012
them again.
that the 2012 election was run by the IRS and was rigged.
Oh.
And they're saying that we're living in a banana republic, and that we're the laughing stock of the
The free world?
of the free. Well, there's no real free world anymore. What used to be, we're the
What
laughing
used to
stock
be-
of the world.
Yeah, I know. We're just another banana republic. We might as well be located in
And
Africa.
so now
Yeah, I understand.
they're saying, okay, because the IRS audited people, destroyed their business, just
You're saying the IRS did that?
crushed people who were on the wrong political spectrum. And so they're going to fix that. And I think what the result is going to be very interesting, because instead of the IRS being, because the IRS was in charge of fixing the 2012 election, probably up to about 20% of the vote. And Obama won by 2%.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the whole thing's fraud.
Well,
But-
it's as you may remember,
Yeah.
we've had multiple shows about the IRS, Lois Lerner, and all the gang of thieves and crooks that have been in
I've been
charge of
taking a
running the
fifth. I've been
IRS.
taking a fifth.
Yeah, but I'm going to take the fifth. But let me tell my story first. And by the way, my story is I'm innocent. I am totally innocent, and I'm telling you, my attorney told me to say that. Oh, by the way, I take the fifth on every other question.
There are no. Now you got Kiskinen, right?
Yeah.
Who's really the
I got
cover.
no skin in the game.
Kiskinen perjured himself easily 20 or 30 times, so he's looking at 1,000 years in jail. But he said,
But that's funny. He's not going to jail.
well, he'll never go to jail because the IRS is the government, is the central government. They run the elections.
But they also
So-
run the Affordable Care Act.
And they also.
And they need him for the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah, and so what happened here is but the thing is, he's covering up the election fraud, and so if that was pierced, right, if they got to the bottom of that, he'd be.
But I thought it was Miller before him that was only in for a short time.
But
because he couldn't
couldn't
lie
handle it.
good enough.
He couldn't handle it.
couldn't lie well
No,
enough
he was
until they
blind.
brought in a professional
No, he
liar.
didn't. And so, but I mean, basically what this is sedition and overthrow of the U.S. government. So if the story comes out, these people will be tried for sedition, and that's the death penalty. So what's 1,000 years of perjury?
What's
so
1,000 years of perjury?
An,
Rather,
an obstruction of justice.
Oh,
and
obstruction of
spoliation,
justice.
Destroying evidence is like, oh, there's no emails, there's no
but
servers.
I understand the Attorney General is supposed to investigate this, but they decided not to.
Well, what's funny, the investigator.
I understand the FBI was supposed to investigate it,
oh, yeah.
but they forgot.
No, but the person in charge of looking for the emails, the missing emails about the
Missing.
about the IRS election rigging, they actually he was blind. Legally
The FBI
blind.
hind a legally blind guy to
investigator.
look for emails. So you know what's interesting about that, Mark, is that it was been the blind leading the blind.
So I mean, this makes Stalin's election look like
Oh,
the freest
my
election
God.
in the world. This is, I mean, it goes.
I-
Okay, but so now we're not going to have.
Now we're serious?
No, the IRS is no longer going to be rigging elections.
Are
Apparently.
you sure?
Now the Department of Justice is going to be in charge.
Oh,
of it.
now the Department of Justice will be in charge of rigging
Yeah, they have
elections.
the new whatever Lynch or
Yeah,
whatever.
God.
Yeah, and so what they're doing is they're going to because used to be had the federal, the FEC, whatever the FEC.
FCC.
The Federal Election Commission.
Oh yes, Federal
Okay,
Election
and there was like
Commission. FEC.
three Republicans and 3 Democrats, and so that was supposed to be balanced. But then they found, Well, it's dysfunctional because nothing's happening.
Oh, nothing's happening.
So they're going to.
So we better put it all Democrat.
No, we're pushing the FEC. They're being completely overrun by the DOJ. So now the DOJ.
Oh, the DOJ.
So the DOJ is now going to run the election.
We know how fair they've been.
Yeah. So well, because they had Operation Choke Point, right?
Well, wait a minute.
Where they said,
if
you don't
agree,
agree.
We had Fast and Furious.
Fast and Furious.
What else?
Which we had, which an informant, ATF blew the whistle.
The only way we found that out was an informant, a whistleblower.
A whistleblower, and then a whistleblower on Ted Stevens, Senator.
On the murder of the assassination of Senator
the framing
Ted
and the assassination of Stevens. Whistleblower. Right. And so basically, we don't have any whistleblowers in DOJ yet, I guess.
Not yet.
Not yet.
I would suggest when you get closer to the end of the president's term, there'll be more whistleblowers.
So there you go. So we've got,
Because you know they get paid as a whistleblower.
Well,
they actually get paid.
If you don't end up shooting yourself with a bullet that doesn't match the gun in front of the fountain 10 minutes before you testify.
Yeah, but that was Vince Foster under the Clinton regime. That was funny when their attorney committed suicide with a gun, and the gun they found in his hand wasn't the gun that killed him.
Yeah, the bullet didn't match the gun.
Yeah, the bullet didn't match the gun. That's always an amazing way to commit suicide.
Sloppy.
You know what he did? You know, for a guy that committed suicide, he was awfully sloppy that he threw the wrong gun away and then grabbed it, and then made it look like he killed himself with a different gun.
Cleaning his ear.
That's a clean opportunity.
You're cleaning your ears with your gun, it goes
off.
Oh, yeah,
that happens.
Of course. Accidents happen. Well, that's why they should make guns illegal.
They should make guns illegal. In fact, you know, the thing is, I'm saying right now, those evil people at the IRA.
The NRA.
NRA.
Yeah, right.
NRA.
And so,
you know what? We got to lock them up.
So anyway,
is the IRS behind that yet?
The IRS is.
What about the DOJ? Are they
still
behind
perjuring themselves so many times. It's just a joke. I mean, to call the IRS a government agency at this point is just ridiculous. They're gangsters. They're just gangsters.
I got to tell you, we touched on this before, but the IRS has been run like a RICO organization.
It really is a
Federal Racketeering Act.
It is.
And the funny part is, which is not so funny, it's a tragic comedy for all of us normal people. I know if I don't pay my taxes, if I don't send in, I get penalized. And it starts and it goes on and on and on and on until you pay your taxes. And here we have the Clinton Foundation, where we were kind of touched on. They got $100 million here and $100 million there, and no one's even looking at them. Now you've got a bill trying to say the IRS has got to pay attention and do the right thing, and we're hoping that that isn't going to happen. But do you realize?
No, they're just going to.
Did you know that there was an organization called Cannabis Inc. that got its tax-exempt status this year in 2 months.
Right.
And there are still Tea Party
corporations
that have waited over 4 years to get their tax-exempt status. And you know why? Because the cannabis said, roll one for the prez. And he's good to go. Let's go. And come on, Holder, come on down.
No, that's an old political thing like log rolling.
Log rolling.
Log rolling. That's the big spliff.
You know, in fact, I was going to bring a log in tonight, but we couldn't get enough water in here to make it spin.
Yeah, so that's all log rolling. But so anyway, so this HR 599, and I don't think it will make much difference because, the government's not so, the federal government's so completely corrupt.
Well, first of all, I'm going to ask a question.
It doesn't really matter.
This bill, I understand, passed unanimously in the House of Representatives.
Yeah, I think
what's happening in the Senate?
The president might veto it.
Well, if it passes unanimously in the Senate, the president can't veto because there's enough for an override. Yeah, that means. But see, he can't run again anyway. Well, at least under this Constitution.
No, he can run again. Look, Putin's been 16 years. Castro was 50 years.
No, but
come on.
But Putin takes his shirt off and stands there like a tough guy. So what am I supposed to say?
Okay, well, if you're mouthing Maoist mumbo jumbo and extraordinary.
Well, wait a minute. Let's go back to this. Isn't the IRS okay? The current leader of the IRS is the one that said, what's his name?
Kiskinnen.
Yeah, he says all the emails are gone.
Yeah,
and then magically, he said he said all the servers were destroyed.
Yeah, were destroyed.
But then all of a sudden, it was, magically, in one little corner of the nation, we found a little server.
In Virginia,
yeah. Yeah, we found a little server
which is like
bank.
A mile away from Washington,
D.C.
No, but that was the Inspector General found it. They took them.
But he's not blind.
No, but he's the first non-blind investigator.
Non-blind investigator on this project.
So I mean, the IRS has been looking for years for these emails.
They've been looking,
and they found them
they finally found them. But you know what's funny?
Yeah, with some of them.
I also found out that Lois Lerner had the ability to delete all of her emails because even though she resigned from the IRS and was suspended and all that stuff, funny enough, she still had access to her server for a year.
Right.
Well, nothing can happen when you have access to a server, of course.
Yeah, well, they can clean things up. So yeah,
How fast?
That's just massive
One
perjury.
day.
I mean, I really, we used to look at our country and say we had a free country and we were a democracy and that we're better than Russia or China. But now it's just a joke. I think China, Russia are just as free, just as fair elections as we have.
But you
here.
know what?
Our
I
election
will
is
tell
a
you
joke.
this.
It's a joke.
If you get pulled over to get a ticket, you can't hand the cop a 20 like you can in
You got to give
Tijuana.
100. Yeah.
In Tijuana, you hand him a 20, you get out of the ticket.
Yeah.
Here, it's not going to happen. So, but how much?
Unless you're a congressman, then you get free.
Well,
ride.
I got a question though. How many tickets does Rubio have?
Yeah, Rubio has 4 tickets.
But anyway, my question is, what is this really going to do? Has the Senate even taken this bill up?
Well, like I said, it passed. It'll probably do well in the House, I imagine
no, it passed unanimously in
will
the
probably
House.
go through the Senate. But I'm saying generally, even if the president can't veto it, like I said, there's already signs that the DOJ is going to rig the 2016 election. So
right.
It'll be as rigged as the 2012
Well,
election.
why don't we leave it on that
So
happy
so
note, knowing that we're going to get another rigged election?
The fix is in.
Okay. What's our final story for tonight, Mark?
This is
Is this a little more happy than
this
the
is
last
well,
one we just went
that
through?
was fun. Okay, no, this is Rand Paul versus the NSA.
Oh, the NSA. Well, are we talking about that 2-mile complex in the middle of Utah that captures every
Everything you do,
communication that anyone does from anywhere in this country and around the world?
In the interest of saving the world.
Oh, the interest of saving the world.
They're always saving the world.
Do you know what I understand?
Yeah.
There's not been one terrorist arrested from an NSA wiretap.
Yeah, but the thing is, there might be someday.
There might be someday.
Yeah.
So we got to listen to every call before then.
So anyway, I guess Rand Paul initiated a lawsuit some time ago, right? On
Yeah, no, actually he filed, this is interesting, today, he filed a class action lawsuit against the NSA saying that, and funny enough, guess who supports him?
Does he have standing?
Who? Yes, he does, because he uses telecommunications.
Okay.
And you know who is now?
Bernie Sanders is with him.
Bernie Sanders is with him.
That's
what's
right.
interesting.
That's great.
This
I
is
like Bernie.
This is one of the.
I don't
most,
agree with Bernie, but I like him.
I'm
He's a great
telling you,
guy.
if you're talking about politics and strange bedfellows, this is one of them.
Right.
You've got people on the far right that are with him. You got people on the far left that are with him. You got the American Civil Liberties Union with them, and you got what is effectively, allegedly, a GOP presidential candidate filing the class action.
Well,
so what are we supposed to say here?
I mean, well, what Rand Paul did, he stood up and he did a filibuster and he stalled. And so what they always do with these bills is like, oh my gosh, the bill runs out. It's like a 3-year bill, right? And then the day before it runs out, it's like, oh, we got to pass it because we ran out of time.
Wait a minute, we're talking about the Patriot Act.
Yeah, and so what Rand Paul says, like, look, you knew this was going to expire for 3 years. And now you're telling me that we can't discuss it because we didn't have time to discuss it before the day that it ran out. And they said, okay, if you oppose this thing, right, and anyone gets killed, you're a mass murderer, right? And Rand Paul said, okay, whatever. But this thing where they always wait to the last minute, you got to pass the bill because we don't have time. But it's always like that. It's like
I hate to give everyone a little update for next time, but we're going to be talking about the new trade bill that allows unlimited immigration. But we're not going to get to that this time.
No, go that.
You got to pass the bill before you can read it.
You can see,
and then we can find out what it says.
Well, it's like Obamacare.
Like Obamacare, you got to pass it. If you want to
really know what the bill does, you have to pass it, and then you'll find out what's in it.
Well, this is
Okay,
like, no, but I mean, you go back to Caligula, go to Napoleon, and they did this.
But I didn't marry a horse.
But you don't know. But the point is, like,
she didn't look that bad.
Despots have always used plebiscites like this, and they've always used these techniques like, oh, we don't have time to look at it because it's an emergency. Everything's an emergency.
Everything's an emergency.
If you put it off for 3 years. And so he stood up and said no. And so the Patriot Act didn't pass. They had to back down. And, the so-called, whatever you call them, the fake Republicans, Bonner and who was the senator guy?
Boehner.
And who's the other guy?
McConnell.
Those two guys who are basically work for.
Nah, they work for the highest payer.
They work for Obama.
Yeah.
And so like those guys are all like, oh no, and so those guys you would expect to be with Obama because they are always not with, because they just make anything that raises taxes and spends more money.
Well, anything that gives more money back to their constituents is where they go.
Yeah. And so so it was Rand Paul, but also against Marco Rubio and Cruz. Cruz were on the other side of this.
Yeah, well,
and
that's what
with
I'm
Obama.
saying. That's why I'm saying. You got the American Civil Liberties
And you have
Union
Bernie
with
Sanders.
Rand Paul.
And
You got Bernie Sanders
with Rand Paul.
With
so.
Rand Paul.
Yeah.
And you got Cruz and Rubio over here. Well,
With Obama,
allegedly,
with Obama.
With Obama. And the president's saying, no, we have to pass this.
Oh,
we have
everyone
to
will
keep
die. Well, everyone will die. Everyone
we're
will
all
die.
going to die.
We're all going
the
to die.
terrorists are coming across the border.
We're all going to die.
Yeah.
And so what
along with that 10, 15 million that we're all letting in anyway. What's a few extra terrorists amongst
we're
friends?
paying to come in. Okay, but so this comes down to generalized warrants, right? And what they did was
Generalized warrants.
So in
no,
other words,
it's supposed to go through the FISA court.
okay, well the FISA court is like a mockery of anything. That's like saying the police are issuing their own warrants. I mean, it's just a mockery of any kind of system.
Well, it is a mockery.
It's just a joke. So
Who pays their bill?
But they're just. It's just like it's basically the fox got in the hen house there.
Yeah.
And so, but the generalized warrant. So in other words, if they don't say, well, there's a guy that we suspect of being a bad guy that uses a AT&T phone or whatever, a Verizon phone, they say we're going to inspect every single Verizon phone user, every call.
Well, you know
of
why?
every single
You've got to
person.
check everybody's phone.
Every single person.
You just don't know what's going on.
Yeah, and so that's a generalized warrant. Now, and this goes back to when they made the Constitution, and you're supposed to be secure in your house.
It's called the Fourth Amendment.
The Fourth Amendment. You're supposed to be secure in your belongings, your house,
and your papers.
Your papers. Now, in those days, you
didn't have cell phones.
Yeah, you had your papers in your house, and so what they were saying, well, you can't come in the house and look at my papers without a warrant. You got to go to a judge. A different branch of government, right?
Right.
The police can't enter unless a judge gives them a warrant.
Correct. The judicial has to back up the executive.
But nowadays, your papers are here.
Well, no, the worst part is your papers aren't here. They're in the cloud. And they're out in space.
Well,
and so your papers are no longer in your phone.
Okay,
they actually travel.
Yeah.
And so the problem with that is they're saying how they're trying to pull this, get rid of the Fourth Amendment on cell phone communication is that you do not own the airwave that you're practicing on. So it becomes open to the public.
Well, also, when you look at your phone, I mean, this has got your calendar, it's got your emails, it's got where you've been.
I hate to see some of those pictures on that phone.
It's got your GPS, where you've been. Everything's on this phone. And so if they can search anyone's phone at any time they want, I mean, that's complete violation of the Fourth Amendment.
Well, wait a minute. The Supreme Court has come down in the last 2 months and said you cannot search. Well, no, I'm not talking about the
second district.
Yeah, I'm talking not the second district. I'm talking about cell phones and how you can just pick them up and search them as a police officer. They said that's totally illegal now. So I thought
that if you had a good cipher.
Well, the way they're looking at it right now, we do know that the second appellate division said that they're going to give back the Patriot Act powers. They're saying that they shouldn't have been wiped out, and they're actually siding with the government on this. And what's interesting is Rand Paul, as much as he can speak his piece and all of that, there's enough people that are saying that the Patriot Act actually is there for a reason. And we're supposed to be protected from terrorism. And if terrorism means that we give up all of our freedoms, we're going to have to give them all up.
But the Patriot Act's a joke. I mean, you've got millions of people crossing the border willy-nilly. What's the?
Willy and nilly?
Yeah, Willy and nilly. I mean,
I'm talking about Jose and Carlos.
Well, no, anybody. No, there's all kinds of people from Yemen coming.
I know.
There's people from all over just crossing the border, and then they get a tip or whatever.
Mohammed and Mahmoud as well.
Yeah. And so, I mean, the Patriot Act doesn't do anything. The Patriot Act is just, there's no reason you can't get a specific warrant under the Fourth Amendment, go to a regular judge. Now, there's judges that are on call 24 hours a day. And if they're worried that some person's going to be a terrorist or something, they can call a judge and give their probable cause and get a warrant and go search his phone.
Well, I tell you what, Mark.